game. It's a rants thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this little small video today. I got a couple topics that I want to talk with you all about. We're going to discuss the two upcoming matchups coming on this weekend, the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship game. And the last topic we'll be talking about is the Cowboys finally hiring their next defensive coordinator, Christian Parker. So that's what we got up and coming today. I'm trying to get back in the schedule of things. I've had a lot going on over the last couple of weeks, but there will be a lot of coverage next week leading up to the Pro Bowl and ultimately the Super Bowl. But before we get into today's little video, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and check out my podcast, the Jayden Bryce Show, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So, my favorite game of the weekend by far is the Rams and the Seahawks. Now, I say that because of this. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching the Seahawks and the Rams play for majority of the year. And in the AFC Championship game, we know that Bo Nix is injured. So who knows how good of a game that is going to be with Jarrett Stidham being the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Who knows? But ultimately, I believe this is going to be the best game of the weekend. It's a highly competitive matchup. We know how well the NFC West has played football. They've been the best division in the NFL by a landslide all year. But it does feel to me that the Seahawks win this game pretty handedly. That is because of how dominant the Seattle Seahawks defense is. I've been on the record saying this for multiple weeks now, and I have quoted that they're not the Legion of Boom, but we can classify them as this decade's Legion of Boom. I feel like this defense is phenomenal. It's the best defense they've had all year. I feel like the Seattle Seahawks has been a well-oiled machine. John Snyder, the GM of the Seattle Seahawks, he just actually was elected for the first year. This is a new award. He was awarded Executive of the Year in the NFL. So that's a good nod for him. He absolutely deserves it with the roster that he has built over the span of the last couple of years. He hit, even last year, he hit on 2 first-round draft picks with Witherspoon and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Both of them are all-pros and Pro Bowl players, caliber players. I know Smith-Njigba is an all-pro. Cannot quite remember if Witherspoon has made an all-pro yet, but they're Pro Bowl caliber players. So Snyder's done a phenomenal job, and he's built one of the best teams that we've seen in the last couple of years. And obviously we need to get to the quarterback because he has been the question mark for the Seattle Seahawks all year. We know they've had a good defense. We've known they've had the best wide receiver in the NFL this year. We know they've had a good rushing attack. But the question mark has been Sam Darnold. And so far, even though we're about to go into their second game of the playoff this season, but we've seen it for multiple times this year. Sam Darnold does not have to do much. He just has to be a game manager. He threw the ball 18 times against the Niners on Sunday or last Saturday. And they scored 40 points. So Sam Darnold does not have to go out there and play hero ball like Josh Allen, be the best quarterback in the playoff. No, he just has to manage the game and let the defense wreck the game. Lean on the rushing attack with Kenneth Walker. Zach Charbonnet tragically tore his ACL. But I think their running game and offensive line is a dominant force. And they got good quality players at the tight end position. And you got an all-pro, the best wide receiver in the NFL this year. And if you're Sam Darnold, he's not going to have to do much. He just has to manage the game. And I say that to say this because the offense for the Rams, and even just the Rams in general, been struggling a little bit this playoff. Hasn't been top-notch. and pretty buttoned up like you would expect from a Sean McVay-led football team. Just not really efficient. You scored 17 points against the Bears on Sunday. Granted, it was an absolute snowstorm. It was probably around 10 degrees, and you're a West Coast team. And I did say last year, I said, the Rams played pretty well in Philadelphia last year in the playoffs, and if it wasn't for the final drive, they possibly could have won that game. So I thought that going into the matchup on Sunday that I figured the Rams would play well, and they pretty did. They did a little, but they're still just not played their best ball. They were in a nail biter against the Carolina Panthers. It took the heroics and the MVP caliber play of Matthew Stafford to get them out of that game. But the Panthers and the Bears are not even remotely close defensively to what the Seattle Seahawks are. They can suffocate you. They will establish their dominance. They want to embarrass teams. That's what Matt McDonald wants to do. He wants to embarrass the Los Angeles Rams. And I think they're going to do that on Sunday. I don't think this game is going to be even close. The line's at 2.5. The home team automatically gets 3 points. So Vegas is kind of saying, hey, they're giving the Rams a legit shot to win this game. I just don't see it. I think the Rams are better in totality. I think they have the better running game. I think they have the better offensive line. And I think they have the best defense all around, from defensive line, linebackers, all the way around. You probably could give the nod to them defensive line-wise because the Rams have a defensive line that can get after you. But they've been pretty disappointing towards the latter part of the season. You got guys like Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and Jared Verse. You got those caliber players on your defensive line, but just haven't played well. Granted, they got a couple big stops on fourth down against the Bears on Sunday night in the divisional round. But I think with Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones and all those guys, Tank Lawrence, Byron Young, they can get after your quarterback, and they will wreak havoc on your offensive line. I like the Seahawks defensive line going up against the Rams offensive line rather than I like the odds against the Rams defensive line going up against the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. I just do not think this game is going to be close. I see Seattle winning by double digits, 10 or more points. I'm shocked that's not even the line. I was figuring this line was going to be close to 7.5, going close to double digits. But they're giving the Rams a legit shot, but I just don't see it happening. Now, if the Rams pull it out, it would be phenomenal. There's a whole lot of numbers going out there about, Matthew Stafford being the MVP, and a lot of people were throwing around the stats. Like, there's only been a couple quarterbacks to win 2 Super Bowls and an MVP. And Matthew Stafford would be in a class of not many quarterbacks, Hall of Fame worthy type accolade to put to his resume. But I'm picking Seattle minus 2.5 in this game. I don't see this game being relatively close. And I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And boy, I say that to say this, I, without a shadow of a doubt, feel like Seattle is going to be the team to be hoisting the Lombardi come February, 8th, I think is the game is. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now let's move on to the next game, Patriots-Broncos. This game's just pretty disappointing straight out of the gate. We know the storylines going into this game that Bo Nix is not available for this game and the rest of the playoffs. He fractured his ankle, and he's out for the rest of the season. So we got a battle with Drake Maye and Jarrett Stidham. And do the Broncos have a chance to upset the Patriots? I just don't see it, y'all. I don't see it. Look, Jarrett Stidham has not played a game in 3 years. I remember I discussed in our last podcast that there was a stat out that said Jarrett Stidham, took a knee or whatever at some point in this season. I can't quite fact check that. But there's no way the Patriots lose this game. There's just no way. The way this, and granted, they're on the road. You're going to Mile High, the altitude, and all that. Yes, true. But even with Bo Nix, we got to think about the offense with the Denver Broncos. It's very Bo Nix reliant. It was put on full display in the divisional round. It really felt like Bo Nix, he was moving out of the pocket, making plays. That's Bo Nix's, that's his game, and that's the way the offense is run. Bo Nix is not your prototypical pocket quarterback. I mean, he can make throws from the pocket, don't get me wrong, but when I think Bo Nix is really at his best when he's able just to use his legs and make plays. And that's what Sean Payton was doing down the stretch of the Bills game. And you're going to be without that. Granted, there's been all these storylines leading up to this game about Sean Payton and free agency being Jared Stidham being the first guy that Sean Payton wanted to sign as a free agent, as the backup quarterback, yada, 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 this and that. I get it. But guys, I just don't see it. I don't see a way where with an offense, and granted, and I say this to say this, I've never been in love with the Broncos the whole playoffs. I actually predicted them to lose to the Bills. I thought they were going to be a first game exit for them. I just didn't trust them. I still don't trust them. I think the defense has not been playing nowhere near as well. If it weren't for the Josh Allen making his own mistakes, the Bills easily should have scored 40 points on the road last week. I just don't think they're playing their best ball. And so you don't have that Seattle Seahawks type defense where you can afford a guy like Jared Stidham to make all the mistakes and your defense make up for it. It's just not going to happen. So I see the Patriots defense really wreaking havoc on Jared Stidham and just the Broncos offense in general. Granted, the Broncos have a phenomenal offensive line, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I'm not going to say they're going to wreak havoc by getting to Jared Stidham. I just say they're going to wreak havoc in the sense that Jared Stidham is not going to have easy throws. Everything's going to be under tight windows. That may force a lot of incompletions, may force a lot of turnovers. I see Mike Vrabel and the defensive coordinator, they got a game plan laid out where we may not be able to get to Jared Stidham. We can try it in the first half, but throughout the game, we're just going to drop back into zone coverage and make Jared Stidham throw in the tight windows and force him to make mistakes. I think that's going to be the game plan for the Patriots, and I think that's how this game's going to go. And offensively for the Patriots, I just don't think the Broncos D is the same caliber as the Texans and the Chargers. And we've been harping on Drake Maye for the last couple of weeks, how he's got, the Patriots they've had a lucky draw. The Patriots played a Chargers team without their two best tackles, both of them Pro Bowl caliber players. And then you face a Texans team where C.J. Stroud does not even have his best targets on the field, and C.J. Stroud himself has had the worst game of his life, throwing 4 interceptions. So you can say that the Patriots has been given a stimulus package this playoff. Granted, they had an easy schedule, and now they're getting an easier schedule in the playoffs. And now you're facing the Broncos without their quarterback, a quarterback who's been healthy all year, hasn't missed a game. I don't even think he's missed a game in his career yet in his first 2 years. So that's the Patriots. But from an offensive standpoint for the Patriots, I just don't see this Broncos defense suffering and suffocating Drake Maye like the Chargers and the Texans did. This defense is not even close to those two teams, I believe. And Drake Maye, granted, as I was alluding to earlier, hasn't played his best ball, but he hasn't been that bad. He's made plays when he needed to make plays. And I think given how Josh Allen played last week, granted, he turned the ball over 4 times, but those were Josh Allen turnovers. It just wasn't because the Broncos defense was playing astronomically well. So I can see a scenario where Drake Maye can play pretty well enough to get the Patriots over the hump and allow them to win this ball game. And I think the Patriots win. I love their matchups in the running game. I love their matchups outside of Pat Surtain. Just it looks like he's a little injured. I have not seen him flash on my screen in the secondary at all. And obviously, the other kid over there, number 21, Riley Moss, he's terrible. So I love Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs to have a pretty efficient day and sprinkle in all the other guys with Mac Hollins and the kid out of Washington State, getting him involved in the passing game as well. Williams, I think it's Kyle Williams' kid. So I see this offense led by Drake Maye to be pretty efficient enough to win the ballgame. I don't think they're going to just go out there and score 30 points. I see this being a relatively close game. I'm predicting a score probably about 24-14, 21-10, that type score. I don't think this is going to be a shootout. I think the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks has an opportunity to be a shootout, but I don't think this game is going to be a shootout. And relatively, speaking about both of these games, it kind of feels like this schedule was a little underwhelming, don't you think? I feel like the playoffs so far has been pretty hype, and for some reason, it's just this conference, the championship weekend just has not had that type of flair like Wild Card Weekend did, and even last week rather, excuse me. Maybe it's just because of the matchups. We're not getting the Drake Maye, Bo Nix type matchup. We're getting a backup quarterback, and even in Seattle and the Rams, you kind of feel like, the Rams are pretty beat down. They've played their best ball, and it might feel like their last fumes in the tank is going up against a gauntlet of a team like Seattle. I don't know. It's just both of these games feel pretty lopsided to me. And I don't see them being very competitive. So I'm definitely hammering. The line for the Patriots game is -4.5 points, favoring the Patriots, and I am going to be smashing that. They are my pick for this game. I have the Patriots -4.5. So that has the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots representing the NFL in the Super Bowl. Who knew in a span of, let's go back down memory lane, in a span of 10 years, close to a decade, would have another Patriots-Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl, but it's not going to be featuring Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. It's going to be featuring Drake Maye and Sam Darnold. Did not have that on my bingo card. Last topic, Cowboys. They hired their new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker. Now, this has been in development for a long while now. Jim Leonard was pretty much the hot candidate for the Dallas Cowboys going into this whole process. Everyone in Twitter and social media around Dallas Cowboys Nation, Jim Leonard, I want to say he had the same position as Christian Parker, and he was pretty much the hot candidate. And obviously, the Cowboys are not able to interview him in person because the Broncos are still in the playoffs. And I'm sure that Brian Schottenheimer and the crew has probably been ready to hire their defense coordinator and get the process running, getting ready for the draft, getting a guy established, getting his crew in there who he wants as far as secondaries coach, linebackers coach, and all that. I've seen a couple tweets today. It seems like that process is currently starting now after he was officially signed on Thursday. But he's had success, and he's groomed some great players. And he was the Eagles passing game coordinator and secondary coach. He's groomed players like Cooper DeJean over there with Philadelphia. He's under the Vic Fangio coaching tree. So he was with Vic Fangio when he was in Denver. And he groomed guys like Pat Surtain. And Pat Surtain is an all-pro, Pro Bowl corner, considered one of the best corners in the NFL. And then he went to Philly and followed Vic Fangio to Philly. And he got his hands on Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. And both those guys, respectively, this year has made an all-pro team. So this guy has some great credentials and a great resume. I mean, he's had experience with Texas A&M College. He's been to Notre Dame. Like, his resume is really, really good. So it was between him and Jim Leonard. They seem to be the pretty hot candidates for the Dallas Cowboys. And it seems like this is a pretty good hire across all skills. This guy has been getting a lot of buzz around the league for being considered one of the future head coaching candidates in the NFL. There's been a lot of guys out, Cooper DeJean said a lot of good things about him. The safety, Justin Simmons for Atlanta, he had a lot of good things to say about him. A lot of great things has been said about this guy. He's young, which is something new. Little nugget here. He's a unique hire. He's the youngest DC that has ever been hired from the Dallas Cowboys. He is roughly, I think it was 34 years old or close to that nature. The youngest past that they've hired was like in the high 40s, low 50s. So this is a young hire. This is an outside of the box type hire. This is nobody that Jerry Jones knows on a personal level, like he has with past hires like Mike Zimmerman and everyone else. And Jesus, Matt Eberflus. I couldn't even think of his name. That's how far I wanted him out of my mind. But yeah, guys like Matt Eberflus, normally Jerry Jones likes to pick guys coaching-wise that he knows on a personal level or he's comfortable with. He done that with Mike McCarthy. He even done that now with Brian Schottenheimer, Jason Garrett, and all his former coaches. It's the same way. And a lot of people in this whole process, when Matt Eberflus was the defensive coordinator, everybody felt like that was a Jerry Jones decision. It wasn't fully a Brian Schottenheimer decision. And definitely during this whole interview process of Christian Parker, a lot of people said, and I agree, that this definitely has Brian Schottenheimer's hands all over it. This had nothing to do with Jerry Jones. But how can his success with the secondary and all that, how does that apply to his play calling? It's going to be two vastly different things. But from what the hype says, great hire. And I'm very excited. I'm ready to see what he can do for Siobhan Ravel. Since our defensive back room is not that great as of right now, who knows what he could say in the draft. He might go for, I know currently in the draft, a lot of people have Cowboys going edge and linebacker. Maybe Christian Parker can convince Stephen Jones and everybody and be like, hey, we need some corners. So why don't we go get a guy like Mansour Delane, Keontae Scott out of Miami, the kid out of Indiana, number 5. I can't remember his name from the top of my head, but he's a baller. He's in the Senior Bowl alongside a couple other individuals that Dallas are looking at. So maybe he could have his little imprint in the draft, and I think that's why they wanted to go ahead and get this hire done. So in the next couple months, we can scout, get the players that we need to be able to fit the system and the scheme that Chris Parker is going to want to run. So I'm very excited. I love this hire. And this is a guy I do believe that Dallas will be able to keep for multiple seasons. And that was the problem kind of with this process. The Cowboys have chose defensive coordinators that has gone on to get head coaching jobs. Granted, this is probably going to be the same type deal in the future. Who knows? But we had Dan Quinn for roughly 3 years until he got a head coaching job. And I see that happening right now with Christian Parker. I think he's going to do a way better job than Matt Eberflus, than Zimmerman. Heck, maybe even Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn had a defense that was very turnover reliant. They couldn't really get stops. That's not been the case for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Like, they've been a defense that can turn the ball over and just get stops and get off the field. And they've even said they've been throwing around names like Nakobe Dean and Reed Blankenship coming over to Dallas already. Those two guys will be better than anybody currently in our safety room and linebacker room at the current present moment, outside of maybe Overshawn in the linebacker position. So great hire. I'm extremely excited for Christian Parker, and I'm ready for this whole regime to get underway. But that is all that I have. I will see you all back on Monday. Enjoy the games this weekend. It is NFL Championship game weekend, and we are officially, as of tomorrow, 2 weeks away from the conclusion of the 2025 and 2026 NFL season. It is gone by a flash, and trust me, the draft will be here before you know it. Mini camp will be here before you know it, and then training camp will be here before you know it. So it's a fast season, been a good season, but I'm definitely thinking that the Seahawks are going to be hoisting the Lombardi in a couple weeks. So got a lot coming on next week. Going to cover the Pro Bowl, MVP awards, All Pros, all that good jazz. Talk about the matchup in the Super Bowl, whoever's going to do it, and maybe any other things. I got a couple coaching hires I even want to talk about, but I just didn't want to talk about that today. I just want to keep this relatively short and sweet. But I love you all, and I will see you all very soon. Have a good day. Enjoy the weekend with some friends and family, and happy football.